Κυρίες και κύριοι, καλησπέρα και από μένα. Θα ήθελα να συγχαρώ τους διοργανωτές για άλλο ένα πολύ σημαντικό CEO Initiative και παρά τις συνθήκες, την καραντίνα και τον COVID, επιμένουν και έχει πραγματικά πολύ μεγάλη επιτυχία με πολύ σημαντικούς ομιλητές και θα ήθελα να συγχαρώ και βεβαίως την ομάδα του Fortune Greece για τα πάντα υπέροχα πράγματα που κάνει. Το περιβάλλον είναι το θέμα μας και έχω τη χαρά και την τιμή να συνομιλήσω για τα επόμενα 20 λεπτά με μια κυρία η οποία γνωρίζει πολύ καλά το περιβάλλον, Bernice Notenboom. Αυτό είναι το όνομά της. She's a climate journalist, she's an explorer, she's a filmmaker, she's an amazing woman. Bernice has visited the harshest environments on the planet, and she will present a clear picture of the climate debate away from the confusion that prevails, opening the debate on sustainability, providing a honest summary of the state of our planet. Bernice, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you for joining me. My name is Notenboom, and I'm a polar explorer, a climate journalist, and I've been going on these expeditions for a very long time. And it is that I see with my own eyes the effects of climate change firsthand. And in order to take you with me into my world, my polar world, where you see the effects of climate change the most, because ice is very visual. If it's too warm, there's no ice, and there's a lot of open water. In the polar explorer, that's really tough to find your way through an area that is no longer the same, that's changing very fast. So I was thinking for this session, I'll start off with a little bit of a glimpse into my life as a polar explorer and how these expeditions have changed and how hard it is to work and operate in an environment like that. So this is a little clip. But this is the hardest part, getting out and getting going from a warm tent into this absolute blizzard. There's virtually no visibility. We're race against the clock at the moment. We need just a lot of luck. And this is what the Arctic has become. It's more storms, lots of snow, and lots of open water. This is one of the many ways we ferry across these leads. We probably have to do many crossings right now, and we need to be more efficient and quick. And we're stopped again because right in front of us is water, and we're kind of uncertain if we can get to the other side. And things are cracking and moving. It's not really super safe to be here. It's so worth protecting what remaining ice we still have, and we really have to start changing our behavior with fossil fuels, because otherwise this will be all water really soon. Well, the big question with climate change is how it has become so important. How is it that somebody who lives in Sydney experiences climate change as well as somebody who living in Norway or all places on the planet? And the problem we see is if we don't do anything, we're going to see a world that is literally 4 degrees warmer. That is coming up soon. That is in 2050. On the other hand, we can also be hopeful, because a child that is born today will live in a world that is 4 degrees warmer when he's 80, but hopefully when he's 21, he doesn't know what a coal-fired plant is, or in a world that is 2050 when he's 30, he will experience a life without any fossil fuels, so completely a life with renewable energy. But it's a long way to go, unfortunately. If we look at this map, if the planet is 4 degrees warmer, There's only a few places in the world where we actually be comfortable, and unfortunately Greece won't be on that map. So we need to act, and we need to act now. And why I showed this little clip of the Arctic is just because we can visually see with our own eyes how fast climate change is having an impact on it. This here is the Arctic this year in September. And in June, a container ship was able to go all the way from Japan to the port of Rotterdam via the coast of Russia, pretty much hitting the North Pole, practically coming real close by it, and not hitting any kind of ice whatsoever. Literally, the world in the Arctic has changed completely. The half of the ice, the remaining ice that is left, is against the coast of Greenland and Canada, and Russia, the Bering Sea, and all that ocean in between is now ice-free. And that will have an impact on all of us. It has an impact via ocean currents. It has an impact via atmospheric pressures, the jet stream. Everything will change and change our climate all over the world. I know that everybody in Europe even, and in America and in Africa has been experiencing really a lot of heat. The last 10 years were the hottest in the last century, whereas this year, or last year, 2019 was one of the hottest, the second hottest. It didn't get as hot as 2016, but heat is simply not good. It creates forest fires. It's bad for your health. People get heart trouble, will get more strokes because of heat. We are not equipped to have air conditioning in our houses everywhere. So this is that we have to deal, and this is the direct, dire consequence of climate change that is everywhere on Earth. If I look at Europe, this is July 24th, 2019, we had 46 degrees in southern France for a couple of days. Unheard of. We've never seen temperatures that hot. And everywhere where it's dark red, that means that the temperatures are too hot for the time of the year. So in Europe, heat is a really, really big issue. And with the heat comes forest fires. I know in Greece there's lots of forest fires. There has been forest fires in Portugal. We still hear about the forest fires in California, and of course the ones in Canada and Siberia. And what is problematic about forest fires like that in areas where no one lives, they go so big and so fast, and nobody is putting them out because it's too remote to even get fire airplanes to these places. With a lot of smoke in the air, it's also one particular particle gets into the atmosphere, and that's black carbon or soot. And the soot gets only washed out of the air when it rains or when it snows. And so when you then go to the Greenland ice cap in the summertime, this is August, no longer white, black. And the problem with the color black is it absorbs heat. It doesn't reflect heat. And that is exactly what we need and what we expect from all the ice that is remaining in the Arctic and in Greenland. We need to have reflectivity. Strong solar radiation needs to get bounced back into the atmosphere instead of doing the opposite, absorbing it, and in which the Greenland ice cap is melting even faster. So with climate change, we have reached into what we call positive feedback loops, meaning the oceans are getting warmer because of lack of ice or because they're heating up, the air temperature is warm, and we're seeing the Indian Ocean is really taking the brunt of it. More heat in the oceans means more tornadoes, hurricanes. It means extreme weather. Now, you probably wonder, what does that have to do with me? Well, take a look at this. This is Hurricane Harvey. This was in 2017. Hurricane Harvey came with full force as a Category 5 onto the mainland. It was meant to go through to a little place called Galveston, which is a peninsula near Houston, Texas. But it didn't go there. And that was a good thing. It actually did hit this part of Houston and wiped out all the houses, as you can see. But imagine when it would have gone to Galveston and it would have hit ExxonMobil and all the other petrochemical industries, then we would have had a real problem because the price of a barrel of oil overnight would have gone from $60 $350. And then the stock market would have crashed, and all of us in the world would have a crisis. We'd have completely dive into a recession. If you ask the insurance company, what is the cost? What is the effect of climate change? They will all tell you this is already happening. We have so many hurricanes of a big category. We have floods. We have fires. This is 2017, the third warmest year on record, the costliest year on record, because as the ocean and the atmosphere keeps on warming, the more extreme weather, the more disasters we can expect. And eventually, insurance companies can't afford the bill anymore, and we are not be able to insure ourselves against these disasters anymore. And even here in Europe, we see them. This here is in the Netherlands, where a slow storm full of hail, it's called a cluster storm, moves as a blanket over the landscape, dropping hail the size of golf balls on cars, on greenhouses, on you personally, on roofs. The damage that can come out of storms caused by too much energy in the atmosphere creating hail like this are becoming too problematic for insurance companies, in which they no longer can afford it. So in the world, everything and everybody is affected by climate change. That's no longer a secret. But what do we do? Is it going to be mitigation or adaptation? Are we going to say, let's really get our planet under the 2 degrees, which is doubtful if we can even manage that? Or do we need to look into a way of adapting to this new world, and we'll try to do whatever we can so the effects of climate change won't be so severe and won't be so painful? Well, there are some companies and some areas in the world that are already doing that. For instance, this here is Los Angeles. It gets very, very warm there in the summer. And the city decided, because cars and parking lots and roads and whatnot, to paint the pavement white. And white is good because it keeps the surface cool and it reflects the sun back into the atmosphere. And if it's cool, then the people in Los Angeles don't have to use as much cooling. Or take a look at what we see all over European cities, creating your own food, the leaf green machine in containers, creating or growing lettuce, tomatoes, cucumbers, vegetables right in the city. You don't have to pay huge transport cost and shipping cost to get food to you. Or building what we're doing now, producing buildings that can create their own energy by putting solar panels on the south-facing sides, especially in areas where there's a lot of sun. This is, of course, a perfect local solution. Everybody creating their own mini network, their own community, sustainable. So that is what adaptation can do. And this, of course, this futuristic city somewhere in Asia where people are completely self-sufficient with enough green for oxygen exchange, solar panels, water, and in which we create an environment that it's pleasant to live in. You don't have to sprawl out into communities or into villages or into suburbia to make life pleasant. And then, of course, we've learned a lot of lessons from this pandemic. We have seen now that we can do what we need to do. We can mobilize, we can put all the money into an effort to try to combat this horrible pandemic. We can follow the rules, we can obey the rules, we all willingly adapt. And the big question is, how come we cannot do it for climate change? This is a much bigger threat to us, because already areas experiencing the effects of drought, extreme weather. So it is almost a daunting question. It's like, can we learn what we have experienced from COVID, and can we apply that to our current situation? And just this in 1 year time, see how much NOxes we were able to reduce in just 1 year. And that's because we weren't flying, we weren't driving, we were staying home, we were doing all the right things that we need to be doing for 2030 and event 50 when we're completely carbon neutral. So we can do it. That's proven. That's the good news. The bad news is that we're so focused on getting our health back and our economies back on track that we tend to forget about what we need to be doing for climate change and for our world in order to make it better and more sustainable. Good news is that in 2024, we will not longer, fossil fuels are a thing of the past. The price of fossil fuels will drop. It's not interested for investors to invest in it anymore. And we will have bypassed, we have actually overtaken in solar and in wind. The price of it will be so much cheaper of fossil fuel. So we are working that way, yet we're not quite there yet. So there's hope. We are doing our best. I am taking CEOs with me to places where climate change is a real problem. This upcoming May, I am going again on an expedition. Greenland, of course, is our big, important ice cap that has reached a tipping point this summer. And we want to focus attention to our energy transition that we all need to do in 2030. We only 9 years left in order to really commit ourselves to the 55% of carbon CO2 emissions, of less carbon CO2 emissions, the reduction. And how are we going to do that? And this stems out to things I've done in the past. I've taken now 100 CEOs with me on expeditions to Spitsbergen and to Svalbard to see with their own eyes what the effects are of climate change. And having them on a ship all together and talking about what needs to happen on the same peer level, the people, the leaders that can make the decisions, the people that can show courage and have the stamina to show different kind of leadership, well, that is what we need to have. Away from the board of directors, away from secretaries, away from Wi-Fi, but just being together in an area with their own eyes where they're seeing what is going on our planet, you can really, really make a lot of progress. And that's what we did. We came up with what we call the Spitsbergen ambition, the Svalbard ambition, which is a document into how all the banks and insurance companies and pension funds, investment companies got together and promised and signed, actually in contractual, to how to report their carbon emissions in the investments and be transparent about it. So it's no longer a secret. Now everybody is sharing this information voluntarily, and it's actually into a brand new climate law in the Netherlands. So it can be done if you all join together and if you all talk to each other and keep that on the forefront of your mind, that you can do that. Okay, because it's 2021 is coming up. In fact, that's next year. And we are projected to run out of our time that we can really keep our planet under the 1.5 degrees. So more than ever, it is really time to act. And I think, at the end of the day, you want to be on the right side of history. You really want to partake into this experience and make sure you are one of the big parties that can make this happen. So on that note, I hope the urgency is clear. I hope you understand that it's really dire. It's 5:12, as we say in the Netherlands. We really, really need to act now, and we need to think about a way to do it soon. Thank you very much for this time that I can address this to you, and I hope you learned something, and good luck. There.
Thank you, Bernice. It was an excellent presentation. Amazing. You're an amazing woman. And I would like to ask you, with only 9 years left for our 55 reduction in 2030, what should happen now, Bernice?
Well, we should realize that time is ticking, that we don't have a whole lot of time anymore. And we lost the whole year with Corona. So really, no climate, no IPCC, no New York United Nations Climate Conference, no World Climate Conference. So without these key moments in our lives to remind us to set the action and to get together and to make agreements and put signatures under all the contracts, we have other ways to make sure that 2030 is still happening. And it's a big task. 55% reduction. With only 9 years left is a very, very big. So what needs to happen is that rather than everybody working apart and thinking about what they can do individually, I'm talking about big corporations and big systems, they all need to collaborate together and figure out a way to reach reductions into economies of scale, so they can benefit from big scale operations and getting discounts. And I'm talking about transitions, for instance, in renewable energy. And the more we can create, the cheaper it will be at the end of the day. And collectively thinking about how they can use each other. And I'm really all for that all the stakeholders, system integration of all the different parties need to get together, join the table, and figure out how they all can work together. That is the only way for this transition to happen within the time frame we got ourselves set.
Why is climate change so difficult to tackle in relationship with COVID era, for which we do almost anything, actually, nothing?
Yeah, it's because it affects our health directly. We get sick from it. We know that we need to tackle it because otherwise the consequences we can't oversee. It's we don't know. It's uncertainty. Our future, if we see it in the United States, that just goes unchecked. What the consequences are, 250,000 deaths right now, millions of people are infected, and there is no end in sight. So that's why we jump to action immediately. And it's amazing that all of a sudden, all this talk about how difficult it is to release funds, how we get people to cooperate, just ordinary citizens, all of a sudden that is not an issue anymore. We do everything. I mean, borrowing money, of course, with negative interest rates, it's easy, but borrowing money, putting the funds together, collaboration, even within Europe, all the people that are willingly staying home and doing it just because we want to get this virus under control. Now, but climate change is a much bigger threat to our planet, to our lives, than COVID. In reality, we already see so many climate victims. And with another year lost, a lot of people say, oh, look, COVID brought us back. We are emitting less carbon emissions, but that's not true. The carbon emissions in the atmosphere, the CO2 in the atmosphere is bigger, is more this year than it was last year. Even the fact that we're not flying and we're not driving as much, we're staying home. So this is really a big problem. And climate change is not something you can smell. It's not something you can taste. It doesn't make you sick, unlike COVID. So why would we want to jump into action? It is just something that is looming on the horizon that is not really affecting us directly. And the other thing is we're not really as human beings to think long term. Long term is, look at a mortgage. We easily put a 30-year mortgage together. We don't even think about it. That mindset just has to change. Then the next question is, how do you change the mindset? Well, we know now in psychology, behavior psychology, there's 3 things that get people into action. One is everybody needs to understand the urgency. So therefore, you need to really do things like this symposium, this seminar, educate people about the dangers of climate change and how fast it's going. So everybody understands what we're up against. 2, we need to make the transition painless. So it doesn't cost you a lot of effort or a lot of money, or it's not a lot of inconvenience. Make a switch. For instance, going in the energy transition to use solar gas in your house, and if that transition is easy, everybody is driving an electric car in the future, then people are also willing to do it. And the third, which is probably the most important, everybody needs to do it at the same time. We all need to collectively join and do it. And those 3 things, if they're into place, then it transition happen really fast. But that's not what we're doing at the moment. We're single-handedly focusing on COVID. We're single-handedly focusing on getting that under control. And then we have the economic recovery, in which ability doesn't play a part at the moment either, because we need to get back to the levels that we were in 2019. And if you ask me, then it's 2023, 2024, before we really can tackle climate change again. And that is simply too late, because when that date is on the horizon, then for sure we'll have a planet that is 2 degrees, if not 3 degrees warmer.
I have so many questions in my mind. However, we're running out of time. Just with 2 words, as far as businesses are concerned, how can businesses use climate change as an opportunity to collaborate? Just your title.
I think if you look at the stock market at the moment, the money, the revenue, the return on investment isn't in fossil fuel industries; it's in renewables. And keep that as a point in your mind if you're doing investments. That's old school. The new school is really renewable energy, and that's where the market is, and that's where the investments need to go. And I would want to be part of that exciting time that we are facing right now, transition. It needs to happen in 8 years. And if you're smart, you want to be on the right side of history and being in that, being part of that. So that's what I would advise economies. Figure out a way how you can contribute.
Thank you, Bernice Notenboom. It was great talking to you. Great honor for me as a journalist, as a woman also. Thank you very much. Thank you. And και σε αυτό το σημείο, κυρίες και κύριοι, να ευχαριστήσουμε και πάλι τους διοργανωτές και να δώσουμε τις σκητάλες στους επόμενους ομιλητές. Να είστε όλοι και όλες καλά.